As I said at the last meeting, this will be the last meeting of the season before we head into the August break. I just want to remind everyone, in case you didn't hear me say this is the last meeting. I understand there was some confusion when I said it last time, and so I want to say it again. I brought everyone back here so that I could say that this will be the last meeting, and I want to extend very, very wonderful best wishes to everyone for the month of August. A violation of the House rules to convene the Rules Committee. I'm not sure. After you said goodbye, I think that what I said is that I hoped that it would be the last meeting of the year. Yeah, that's what I said. You just didn't hear me say next to the last meeting of the year. And you know what? I am determined to make sure that every member of this committee gets an opportunity to ask Frank Lucas a question, if there are questions for him. And so I just would like to say that we're here for consideration of H.R. 6233, and I think it's no secret that we were hoping to provide a vote on disaster drought relief for those who are suffering under suspension of the rules, because we assumed that there would be a strong majority. We know that Mr. Hastings was going to be part of that effort, but there were some concerns about the offsets, and that's what brought us here. So let's hear from the distinguished chairman of the Agriculture Committee. Welcome to the Rules Committee. And Mr. Chairman, I will tell you that without objection, that beautifully prepared statement that you have will appear in the record in its entirety, and I know you can tell us what it is that you would like to have us do.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Of course, I'm here for H.R. 6333, the Supplemental Agricultural Disaster Assistance Bill.
Mine says 6233, I think, here. Is it?
6233,
right.
Supplemental Disaster Bill. In the 2008 Farm Bill, there was one section in the way the bill was financed that did not have funding baseline for the fifth year, and that's the section of the bill that deals with livestock drought disasters. We find ourselves now in a horrendous drought that covers 65% of the country. Today, in my own district in Oklahoma, I had a weather reporting station that topped out at 115. Wow. This is the second year of the drought for us. If indeed this drought pattern continues across the Midwest as it began in the Southwest last year, there will be no moisture of any consequence until November. The summer crops will all be lost. While under the 2008 Farm Bill, crop farmers can depend on crop insurance to address their losses, because funding was not made available in the original bill for the fifth year, livestock producers now find themselves not only unable to acquire the kind of insurance products that the other crops have, they just simply don't have anything. So what we attempt to do in this bill is to take part of the funding in the fifth year and put a cap on the EQIP program of $1.4 billion, put a cap on the Conservation Stewardship program of 11 million acres, take that $640 million in savings, apply approximately $380 million of that to funding the fifth year of the drought disaster program, and the additional funds then, of course, go back to the United States Treasury. This would only provide resources through the existing fifth year of the Farm Bill, 1st of October 2011 to September 30, 2012. It extends nothing. It just simply fills in a hole that, unfortunately, budget constraints in 2008 created in this Farm Bill.
Well, thank you very much for that. And obviously, 115 degrees is pretty doggone hot. And you've got more than a few challenges that you're facing as our farmers across the country. And so we appreciate the work and the effort that you have put into this. I hope that we'll be able to move expeditiously on this to the floor and have a good, strong vote, even if we don't get a two-thirds majority for it. So I have no questions other than, as I prepare to yield to Mr. Sessions, I think that Mr. Nugent has a special guest in the audience that I think that he might like to introduce.
Well, I'm glad, Mr. Chairman, that you recognize my wife, Wendy. And she's been here for 2 weeks now, and a couple times she's come to this committee So I appreciate you recognizing her. Thank you.
Yeah, Wendy, thank you very much for joining us. We're very, very happy to have you. Mr. Sessions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Lucas, thank you for bringing this bill forward. I, notwithstanding live in the city, have lived in a rural district, have represented a rural district, but one which is far different than many parts of the country. And I will tell you that people out there are optimists. They will show up every morning at 5 o'clock to go get their job done. They'll work at it all day. They'll plant, even when the Almanac says it's going to be the worst ever. And there's something about people who love dirt and land and vegetables and animals and the life that's out there. And I know that your committee and you strongly believe in those people also. I don't know how long this is going to last. I've been through droughts before. As you know, 2/3 of Texas is and has been in a severe drought. Our grass is gone. We don't even have any grass. We got rain, but nothing for hay, not much for hay. So I've traveled all through the Midwest, part of the West, central part of the country, and I've seen this devastation. But I just want to say to you that I'm glad that you brought this bill forward, and I hope that in a way that as you take it back to your committee and they take it back to their people across the country, whether you live in Dallas, Texas, and you think you get milk from Albertsons or Tom Thumb or wherever, Safeway, we know where it comes from. And I've got great respect for what you do, and I thank you for not being the squeaky wheel, but rather representing people and doing well. And I appreciate you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I, too, respect Chairman Lucas. Just like you have the pleasure of having me on this committee, Mr. Lucas has the pleasure of having me on his committee, too. And I respect the work that he does, although I don't always agree with it. And I understand the importance of addressing the terrible crisis of the drought. But I just have to say, for the record, I disagree with the offsets. And I just trying to figure out why there's a reason why we're cutting the conservation title programs to pay for disaster as opposed to using more of the direct payment pot of funding that is ultimately being eliminated in the committee's proposed 5-year bill. I mean, these conservation programs really are designed to help mitigate drought conditions. And anyway, I think we could have had better offsets. So I think I do have a strong objection to this bill in its current form because of those offsets. Yeah, sure.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. The way we pick the funding sources reflect the way the budget process works. Ironically, these are programs that the appropriators have been chimping, which I believe is the phrase for taking mandatory money, reallocating it, and then spending it through their own priorities. In order to chimp it this last time, they actually, in the appropriations process, extended these programs a 6th year. So basically what we've done here is reached out to take resources that are actually available and resources that the appropriators were reallocating anyway in order to come up with the approximately $640 million. I would assure the gentleman we tried to do this in a way that would cause the least distortions. The amount of money available for EQIP and CSP really won't go down because the appropriators have been chimping it for several years now.
Yeah, well, as you know, there's a lot of concern over whether or not this will impact us. Just one final question. I appreciate all the hard work that you did on the farm bill, even though I opposed it. But my question to you is, do you know when your leadership is going to bring it up to the floor for a vote?
Since the morning after, or the day of, I guess, we finished the bill that early morning, I have been suggesting to leadership that time be made available. Unfortunately, I don't control the floor schedule, and I'm not privy to all the difficult decisions they make, but sooner the better would be the best from my perspective, too.
Well, again, I regret that I can't support this because of the offsets, but I do appreciate all your work, and I have great respect for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with comments that Mr. Sessions made about how difficult it is for people to be farming, having farmed a little bit all my life, and realizing that you're subject to the vicissitudes of the weather, and it makes you wonder sometimes why anybody's willing to do it. But I thank God every day that we still have people in this country who are willing to put up with all the challenges that that farming brings with it. And I appreciate the hard work that you bring to the Ag Committee and that you've done on the Ag Committee. And I don't really have any questions, but I want to thank Mr. McGovern, too, for his kind comments about your work. And I know I've always heard that the Ag Committee is a very bipartisan committee, and I think you do good work, and I appreciate what you've done. Thank you.
Chairman Lucas, I thank you, and I echo the sentiments of my colleague, Mr. McGovern, with reference to the extraordinary work that you and our colleague, Colin Peterson, have done. Putting his question a different way, do you have the assurance of the leadership that we will vote on a 5-year bill?
I believe that we will. I do not have a specific date commitment from leadership. I know that the present Farm Bill begins to expire on the 30th of September. I know that based on past experiences when we've gone into this similar mode before in my time here, that USDA can tread water, so to speak, what a phrase to use in the drought, tread water for a period of time, but ultimately we have to have a Farm Bill.
I appreciate
you and I both agree.
I appreciate your answer. I think may have in part been rhetorical for the reason that I have at least read statements from certain parts of the leadership with reference to this measure. I think you know my sentiment, and Colin certainly knows that I believe for purposes of certainty among those who have continuing interest in agriculture, that the 5-year bill makes an awful lot of sense, and we should be doing it, as you put, sooner rather than later. We talk about certainty all the time, and I think that they forged a measure that I have disagreement with certain of its particulars, but I am wholeheartedly supportive of us doing a 5-year measure. I also believe that the measure at hand affects every last American and much of the world, largely for the reason that 50 of our counties, you say 65% of the country, 50% of all of the counties in this country are suffering a drought. It augurs for me to ask my colleagues to consider in the next session of Congress something that I've advocated previously, and that is that we have a disaster committee designed specifically along the lines of the Japanese Diet's 14th committee that they have, that allows, when disasters do arise, that they can be handled much more quickly than we do through our ordinary process. I'm pleased that you're getting something out there for a drought under the circumstances, but we need to think beyond the immediacy of this. What is going to happen to us is the cost of food is going to skyrocket. All of us know that. Those of you that bet on the commodities market could have made a fortune yesterday and probably for a week with reference to corn, soybeans, and a whole bunch of things along those lines. But we need to begin to be able to address not just drought, and footnote right there, I wonder how many of y'all believe climate change is real. And if you think it ain't, just stick around, because the scientists are telling us that these patterns are not unique any longer, and that we're likely to see them for years to come. So I thank you, Mr. Lucas, for your efforts, and I do, coming from a rural and urban district, and there are 14 of us in Congress that represent areas like that. I can tell you they make for very hard votes, particularly when we wind up having to do things to fit into the budget framework. For example, just on food stamps alone, if we think people need them now, if we think our charitable interests in this country are in desperate need, wait till January, no matter what we do here. And I assure you that we are in for some even tougher times. And I'm not talking about politics. I'm talking about plain food. And like Dr. Fox, I grew up on a farm. It's so interesting in life. The first time I went to pick beans on the back of a farm truck was in Pahokee, Florida. And we called it going down to Pahokee on the muck. And I now represent Pahokee, Florida. And I'm concerned about them. I'm concerned about not just the areas of drought, but all of our farm interests in this country. And I would urge the leadership and say to them that I said it, that they need to get off the dime, and we need to pass this 5-year bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to take your message to the leadership, Mr. Hastings, and tell them you said so next time. I happen to agree with you, and I'll share it from me as well. Mr. Chairman, tell me, I don't come from a rural district, but I have friends and family who live in rural areas. My recollection of their last set of tales of forage assistance was that something had gone on with the Farm Bill. It didn't get passed in the right amount of time. The drought had already taken place, so they didn't have to pay a penny in insurance until the drought had already happened. And then there was a federal program that said, if you pay your insurance payments late, we'll let you go back and collect on all the insurance. Was that the origin of this 2008 Farm Bill?
In 2008, and I will acknowledge that under Chairman Peterson, one of the main focuses was to make sure that everyone buy crop insurance that had access to it, that they participate in those programs, and that in a number of the livestock and grass-related things like NAP, that you paid your fee up front. That's a very important principle. That's part of why when there were suggestions that different new items be added to this package, basically the committee took the perspective that we weren't creating new programs. We were simply funding what had not been funded and therefore was not available. And that's not the producer's fault. So we're filling a hole. We're not building any new bridges. That is of concern in the other body, and that is of concern among some of our colleagues. But that wasn't our responsibility here.
I'm still trying to sort out some of the challenges between mandatory spending and discretionary spending 18 months into the voting card and the CHIMP process. I remember we were introduced to that back in the continuing resolution process in 2011. Tell me what the practical effect is of what's happening here. If we vote and we pass this, and the Senate passes it, and the President signs, are these savings locked into law, or?
The approximately $250 million are, because by capping EQIP at $1.4 billion, which is what the appropriators have been doing as a CHIMPAS, by capping the CSP program at 11 million acres, which is what the appropriators have been doing, basically we won't be spending for $640 million. But of that, approximately 380, and I'm rounding the numbers up and down and sideways to make it a little quicker, but the $380 million will go to fill that fifth-year hole. It will be people who should have qualified if the money had been available for the last 10 months. It'll be people who will qualify for the next 2 months. But on September 30, this is over, just as so many other provisions of the Farm Bill are. No extension of anything in this bill beyond that.
And is there a revenue component as folks go to buy that insurance that had not been available to them
There are
before?
fees that have to be paid, yes.
And is that money spent as well, or does that go into another pot, and so we don't see that reflected?
All rolled back into the process,
In the program.
I believe.
Fantastic. Again, my metro Atlanta area does not utilize your services as much, but as the largest export and business opportunity in the great state of Georgia, we love your committee and appreciate what you do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Lucas, I really do appreciate what you've done, and I would call upon all of our members that this is so important to fund an issue that was not funded in the last Farm Bill. You know, our producers had nothing to do with that. They live based upon what the Farm Bill was that was passed. I don't understand necessarily why it wasn't funded, but it wasn't. And I want to make sure, just as Mr. McGovern has mentioned and Mr. Hastings, that we need to make sure that we don't lose out in regards to our farmers not having the ability to be here when we need them the most. So I would encourage all of our members to vote for this extension. And I agree that we need to have a 5-year Farm Bill, and I would encourage leadership and everyone else to move forward.
Scott, Webster, thank you very much for being here, Mr. Lucas. We greatly appreciate it. And, that will conclude the hearing for H.R. 6233, and the chair will be in receipt of a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move the committee grant H.R. 6233, the Agricultural Disaster Assistance Act of 2012, a closed rule. The rule provides 1 hour debate equal to dividing throw by the chair and ranking minority member on the Committee on Agriculture. Rule waives all points forward against consideration of the bill. Rule provides that the bill shall be considered as read. Rule waives all points forward against provision of the bill. Finally, the rule provides one motion to recommit.
You've heard the motion of the gentleman. Let me just say, this is it's a closed rule. As I said, we were hoping to bring this up under suspension of the rules. We'll have an hour of general debate, and the minority will have a motion to recommit the bill itself. I should say that at 8:09 last night, this bill was made available online, and as I said, was originally provided for suspension authority, under suspension authority. And again, I will say to everyone, I hope you have a great August. This is, I can provide as close to a guarantee as you possibly can that this will be the last meeting of the Rules Committee. But you never know. I mean, stay tuned. How's that for a promise? Any amendments to the rule, Mr. McGovern?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment to the rule. I move that the committee grant H.R. 6233 an open rule so that all members have the opportunity to offer amendments to the bill on the floor. As you mentioned, this was posted last night at 8:09 as a suspension bill. 1 hour ago, we were notified that we would have an emergency meeting and that this was coming to the floor. This bill has had no committee consideration. I think there's some controversy over the offsets, so I think we owe it to our colleagues to give them an open process.
Vote occurs on the McGovern amendment. Those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The chair, the noes have it. The noes have it. The amendment's not agreed to. Are there further amendments? If not, the vote occurs on the motion of the gentleman from Dallas. Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed,
Aye.
no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. Motion is agreed to. And Ms. Fox will be managing for the majority,
And Mr. Polis.
and Mr. Polis for the minority. Hope everyone has a wonderful August. See you in September. Without objection, the committee stands adjourned.